I walked into my garage that Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, ready to check on my 1972 Buick Riviera like I did every week. The space was empty. My heart stopped. I spun around, searching for some explanation, and found my son Derek standing in the doorway with a smirk plastered across his face. He tossed me a set of keys. "Relax, Dad. I sold it. Got you something way better." I caught the keys without thinking, my mind struggling to process his words. "You what?" My voice barely worked. "Sold it. That old thing was just taking up space, collecting dust. You're retired now, you need something practical." He pointed to a bland gray sedan sitting in the driveway. "That's yours now. More reliable, better gas mileage, better for someone your age." I stared at the keys in my palm. They felt wrong. Heavy. Foreign. "Derek, that was your mother's car." He shrugged, like I'd mentioned the weather. "Mom's been gone 8 years, Dad. You need to stop living in the past and move forward with your life." The words hit me like a physical punch to the gut. I looked at my son, this 29-year-old stranger wearing my late wife's dismissal like a badge of honor. "Where is it?" I asked quietly, my voice shaking. "Gone. Guy picked it up yesterday. Cash deal. All done." He walked away whistling, clearly proud of himself. I spent the rest of that day sitting in the garage, staring at the oil stain where the Buick used to be. That car was more than metal and wheels to me. My wife Annie and I had spent 2 full years restoring it together, weekend after weekend. She picked the burgundy paint color. I rebuilt the engine from scratch. We drove it on our last good day together before the cancer took her ability to walk. I kept it absolutely perfect, started it every Sunday without fail, and talked to her while I polished the chrome until it gleamed. Derek knew all this. He'd heard me tell the stories 100 times, seen me care for that car like it was alive. Yet he sold it like it was worthless trash. That evening, I went inside and found a check sitting on the kitchen counter. It was made out to Derek, not me. $18,000. My hands shook as I picked it up and stared at the numbers. He didn't just sell the car without permission. He pocketed every single dollar. I heard his wife Mallory laughing in the living room with forced brightness. "Finally," she said to someone on the phone, "he's learning to make smart money moves instead of being sentimental." I folded the check carefully and put it in my pocket. Something cold and hard settled in my chest, replacing the shock. The next morning, my neighbor Henry stopped me while I was checking the mail. "Tom, I need to tell you something. I've been feeling guilty about it." He looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Derek had people coming by to look at that Buick for weeks now. I thought you knew about it and approved." My stomach dropped like a stone. "Weeks," Henry nodded solemnly. "Yeah, man. Had it listed online with photos and everything. Even saw him show it to potential buyers right in your driveway while you were at the grocery store." I waved at him once, and he looked nervous. So this wasn't some impulsive decision. It was planned, calculated, deliberate. I thanked Henry and walked back inside, my mind racing. Through the front window, I could see Derek's new truck parked in my driveway. Cherry red, custom rims, lifted suspension. That's where my money went. He sold my wife's memory for a down payment on a toy truck. I called him that afternoon, trying to keep my voice steady. "Derek, we need to talk about the car and what happened." "Dad, I already told you everything. It's done. Move on and stop being dramatic." Click. He hung up on me without another word. That night, Mallory posted a photo on social media. Derek leaning against his shiny new truck with the caption, "Smart investments always pay off, #blessed." The comments were full of congratulations and praise. Nobody knew where the money really came from. I drove the gray sedan to Derek's house for our usual Sunday dinner. It felt like driving a refrigerator on wheels. No soul. No memory. No connection. Just cold metal. The moment I walked through the door, Mallory's mother Constance was already there. She lived with them now, running their house like a military general. "Oh, Tom," she said, looking me up and down with barely concealed judgment. "You're looking awfully thin these days. Are you eating properly?" Before I could answer, Derek interrupted loudly. "Dad, we need to talk seriously about the whole car situation and clear the air." I sat down slowly in the armchair. "I'm listening. Look, I know you're sentimental about it and attached to the past, but it was just sitting there unused. An asset going to waste. You should honestly be thanking me for handling it." I felt my jaw tighten.
Thanking you?
Yeah, absolutely. I got you something reliable and safe, something appropriate. You're not getting any younger, and that old car was dangerous. Constance chimed in with false sweetness. He's absolutely right, Tom. That old car was a complete eyesore in the neighborhood. Derek did the responsible, mature thing. I looked at Mallory. She nodded in complete agreement, arms crossed, 3 against 1. Derek leaned back in his chair, supremely confident in his position. You need to let go of the past, Dad. Mom wouldn't want you stuck like this, dwelling on her memory. That was the final straw. I stood up without saying a single word and walked straight out the door. Behind me, I heard Constance say mockingly, "Dramatic old man, isn't he?" Monday morning, I drove straight to the DMV. The woman behind the counter pulled up the vehicle records and immediately frowned. "Sir, this title transfer has some serious irregularities that concern me." My pulse quickened with anticipation. What kind of irregularities? The signature doesn't match your previous documents on file. See here? She showed me both signatures side by side. The new signature was close, but fundamentally wrong. Too smooth. Too confident. Too steady. My real signature had always been shaky and uneven since my hand injury from the factory. "That's not mine," I said quietly but firmly, my voice cutting through the air. She looked at me with sudden seriousness. "Sir, if someone forged your signature to transfer a vehicle title without authorization, that's fraud and identity theft. You have every right to file a police report immediately." I stared at the forged paper, reality sinking in. Derek had faked my signature. He didn't just sell my car without permission, he actively stole it through fraud.
"Can I get copies of everything?"
I asked. She printed the entire file. I walked out with a thick folder full of damning evidence and a completely new understanding of my son. Derek wasn't just thoughtless or insensitive. He was an actual thief. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at his forged signature, comparing it to mine. Then I started the engine and drove home with purpose. That changes absolutely everything, I muttered to myself. I called Derek that same afternoon, keeping my voice neutral. "Hey son, I've been doing some thinking about everything."
"Yeah?"
He sounded immediately cautious and guarded. "You're right about some things. I was being too sentimental about the past. Thank you for the new car. It really is practical." Long silence, then obvious relief flooded his voice. "Really, Dad? That's great to hear. I'm so glad you finally understand my perspective." "I do now. Want to come by this weekend? I'll make your favorite dinner like old times." "Sure, yeah, that sounds really good, Dad." I hung up and smiled for the first time in days. Not a happy smile. Not warm. A planning smile. Over the next week, I played the role of grateful father perfectly. I drove the sedan everywhere. I thanked Derek enthusiastically every single time I saw him. I let him think he'd completely won. But in my garage, I started a different kind of project. I pulled out an old filing cabinet and began meticulously documenting everything. The forged signature. The check made to Derek. The complete timeline of the secret sale. Every text message. Every conversation. Every witness. I bought a small notebook and wrote down dates, times, and witnesses with military precision. If I was going to do this right, I needed to be absolutely thorough. I needed to be patient. Derek started visiting more often, relaxed and confident. He thought I'd finally accepted my proper place in his world. 2 weeks later, I went to my garage looking for my socket wrench set. Gone. I checked my entire workbench thoroughly. Half my tools were missing. I walked inside and opened my dresser drawer. My father's vintage watch, the one Annie gave me on our 20th anniversary, was gone too. I sat on the bed, trying desperately to remember when I'd last seen it sitting there. Then it hit me like lightning. 3 months ago, Derek had asked to borrow some tools for a home project. I'd said yes, thinking he genuinely needed them for repairs. He never returned a single one. The watch disappeared around that exact same time period. I called him immediately, voice tight. "Derek, did you borrow my father's watch?" "Oh yeah, I meant to tell you about that. I sold it last month. You never wore it anyway, so I figured it was just sitting there. Got $300, figured you could use the cash more than a dusty watch." He said it like he'd done me an enormous favor. That was my father's watch, the one Mom gave me. "Dad, you have a phone to tell time now. You don't need an old watch taking up space." Click. He hung up again. I sat there holding a dead phone, realizing this pattern had been happening for over a year. Small things disappearing gradually. Derek systematically liquidating my life piece by piece, treating my possessions like his inheritance was already his, like I was already dead and gone. I drove to see my old friend Marcus, a retired lawyer who still offered advice over coffee at the local diner. I brought the entire folder from the DMV. Marcus read through everything carefully, his expression darkening with each page. "Tom, this is absolutely clear-cut fraud, identity theft, forgery, multiple crimes. You could press criminal charges today and win easily." I shook my head firmly. "Not yet." "Now." "Why the hell not?" "Because if I go after just one piece, I want to take the whole game. Everything." Marcus leaned back in the booth, studying me carefully. "What exactly are you planning here?" "I don't know the full picture yet, but I know Derek's personality. If I move too fast, he'll spin everything. Make me look like a confused, senile old man. I need to let him keep digging his own grave deeper." Marcus nodded slowly with understanding. "You need to be extremely careful with this. Document absolutely everything. Don't confront him until you're completely ready to strike." "I won't confront him prematurely." "And Tom, when you finally do this, do it completely clean. Don't give him any possible way to turn it around on you or claim you're incompetent." We shook hands firmly. I left with a detailed list of things to document and a new crystal clarity. This wasn't just about the car anymore. This was about teaching my son that some people are dangerously underestimated for very good reasons. The following Tuesday, Derek and Mallory showed up at my house completely unannounced. "Dad, we need to talk about something really important for your future." I poured them coffee, playing the gentle, trusting father perfectly. "What's on your mind?" Derek slid official-looking papers across my kitchen table. "We think you should sign over partial ownership of the house to me, just to make things easier for everyone involved." I looked at the document carefully. It would give Derek 50% ownership immediately, right now. Easier how exactly? Mallory jumped in quickly. "For paperwork and legal stuff. If something happens to you suddenly, it'll be so much smoother for everyone. No probate court." Constance, who'd come along uninvited again, added with fake concern. "It's the smart thing to do, Tom. At your age, you really need to think ahead about these things." I pretended to read the papers extremely carefully, taking my time.
"Can I think about it for a few days?"
Derek's confident smile tightened noticeably. "Sure, Dad, but don't wait too long. These things take time to process through the system." They left 20 minutes later, absolutely confident they'd successfully planted the seed. That night, I went online and ordered 4 small hidden audio recorders. If they wanted my house, they'd have to say it out loud first. I installed one in the kitchen, one in the living room, one in my bedroom, and one carefully hidden in the garage. Then I waited patiently for them to incriminate themselves. It took exactly 3 days. Derek and Mallory came over while I was supposedly napping in my bedroom. I listened from behind my closed door as the recorder captured absolutely everything.
"Your dad's way too soft,"
Derek said, laughing arrogantly. "He'll forgive absolutely anything. He's completely stuck with us now. We've got him." Mallory giggled. "Did you see his pathetic face when you mentioned the house? He's actually seriously considering signing it over." "Of course he is. Once we get partial ownership, we can leverage it for loans. Maybe take out a home equity line. He doesn't need all this space anyway at his age." "What about the title thing?"
"The car forgery?"
"What about it? He doesn't know I forged anything. Even if he somehow found out, who's he going to tell? He won't risk looking stupid or incompetent in public." They talked for 15 more minutes, planning in detail how to slowly take everything I owned. I lay in bed, recorder running perfectly, and smiled. Evidence. Beautiful, crystal clear, damning evidence. When they finally left, I transferred the audio file to my computer, made 3 separate backup copies, and labeled it Confession, full date, and timestamp. Then I sat in my garage and laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks. Derek thought I was weak and senile. He was about to learn the critical difference between weak and patient. I called my niece Celeste the very next day. She was a paralegal working in the city, smart and sharp-eyed.
"Uncle Tom, is everything okay?
Can you come stay with me for a while? I could really use the company and help." She arrived that weekend with 2 large suitcases. Derek showed up the next day, completely uninvited and visibly annoyed. "Dad, what's this about?" "What's what about?" "Celeste living here suddenly. You didn't mention anything about this to me." Celeste stepped forward confidently. "Hi, Derek. Nice to see you too, cousin." He barely acknowledged her existence. "Dad, can we talk? Alone? In private?" I shook my head calmly. "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of family." Derek's jaw tightened visibly. He made a weak excuse and left quickly. That night, I told Celeste absolutely everything. The car, the forgery, the tools, the watch, the audio recordings. She listened without interrupting once, her expression growing colder with each detail. "Uncle Tom, this is extremely serious. You could destroy him legally and financially. I know exactly what I can do. So why haven't you done it yet?" I looked out the window at the empty garage space, because I want him to understand what he actually took. Not just the physical things, the trust, the relationship. Celeste nodded with determination. "Then let's build a case he absolutely can't escape from." We worked late into the night, organizing evidence into a comprehensive file. I found the buyer through the DMV records. His name was Vincent, a classic car collector from 2 counties over. I drove to his garage and knocked firmly. When he opened the door, his face fell immediately. "You're Tom, aren't you? You know me? The Buick. I've been researching it obsessively since I bought it. Found old photos online. You and a woman restoring it together. Your wife?" I nodded slowly. "She passed 8 years ago from cancer." "Vincent looked genuinely sick. Your son told me you were dead." Said he was selling his late father's estate to settle debts. The words hit me like ice water. "He told you I was dead?" "Yeah. Even showed me a fake death certificate. I'm so sorry. I would never have bought it if I'd known the truth." "It's not your fault at all." Vincent let me inside. The Buick sat in his garage, still absolutely perfect. "I paid $18,000, he said. "Your son told me it was worth 15, but I wanted it enough to overpay slightly." I shook my head sadly. "It's worth over 50,000, maybe significantly more to the right collector." Vincent's face went completely white. "He scammed us both. He lied to everyone." "Will you help me make this right?" I asked directly. Vincent didn't hesitate even 1 second. "Absolutely. What do you need from me?" "Documentation. Everything. Receipts, messages, the fake death certificate." He handed me a thick folder. "It's all here. Every single communication." I took Vincent's evidence directly to Marcus. He called in a favor from an old appraiser friend named Calvin. We met at Calvin's shop and I told him about the Buick. His eyes lit up with recognition. "Tom? Tom Morrison? The guy with the burgundy Riviera?" I blinked in surprise. "You know it?" "Know it? I helped you source original parts 15 years ago. You and your wife came to my shop every single weekend for months." The memory hit me hard. Calvin had been younger then, just an apprentice. Now he owned the entire place. "You remember us?" "Of course I remember. That car was an absolute masterpiece." "Where is it now?" I told him the complete story. Calvin's expression darkened with anger. "That car, fully restored with documentation and history? Easily 50 to 60,000, maybe more to the right collector." He wrote up an official appraisal, notarized and detailed. When he handed it to me, he gripped my hand firmly. "I'm so sorry about your wife. She was incredibly kind to me back then. Thank you for remembering her." I left with the appraisal, another crucial piece of the puzzle. Derek had undersold a $60,000 car for $18,000, pocketed the money, and lied to everyone involved. The case was building systematically. Celeste spent the entire weekend drafting a document. "This is absolutely brilliant," she said, smiling wickedly. "We call it a revised estate plan. It looks exactly like you're giving Derek everything he wants. But buried in the legal language is a clause. If he signs it, he acknowledges the current ownership structure and waives any future claim to assets obtained through fraudulent means. In plain English, if he signs this, he admits the house is yours, the car was yours, and anything he took illegally has to be returned. He'll be signing his own confession without realizing it." We printed it on official-looking paper. I invited Derek over for dinner. "I've been thinking seriously about what you said, about the house and planning ahead." His eyes lit up greedily. "Yeah?" I slid the document across the table. "I had a lawyer draw this up. It protects both of us legally." Derek barely glanced at it. Where do I sign? Mallory grabbed it. Let me read it first, honey. Babe, it's fine. My dad's not trying to trick me. He's not smart enough. He signed with a flourish. Mallory signed as a witness. They had absolutely no idea what they'd just done. Celeste notarized it that night. Grinning, they just gave up everything. The next week, Constance started her aggressive campaign. I heard it through the recorder I'd hidden in Derek's truck during a visit. You need to move him into a home soon, she told Derek firmly. This house is way too big. We could convert it into a rental property. Make real money every month. I don't know, Mom. He seems fine to me. He's 70 years old, Derek. He's going to fall or forget something important. Better to do it now while he can still adjust to the change. Mallory agreed enthusiastically. She's absolutely right. Plus, we desperately need the space. Once we have the house, we can renovate completely. They talked for 20 minutes about which facility to put me in. I listened to the whole recording twice, just to be absolutely sure I'd heard correctly. They were planning to warehouse me like old furniture. The next Sunday, Constance handed me a glossy pamphlet at dinner. Tom, I found this wonderful community. Active seniors. Great care and activities. I looked at the brochure. Shady Pines Retirement Community. It's not a nursing home, she said quickly and defensively. It's independent living with support. With medical staff on site 24 hours, Mallory added. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes at all. I closed the pamphlet carefully. I'll think about it. Constance smiled triumphantly. Don't think too long. They fill up fast. I went home and added the recording to my growing evidence folder. 2 weeks later, Derek showed up with official papers. Dad, we found you a perfect spot at Shady Pines. You can move in next month. I looked at the admission forms carefully. Next month? Yeah, it's better this way for everyone. You'll have people around all day, activities, meals prepared. And my house? Derek shifted uncomfortably. We'll take care of it for you. Maybe rent it out. The income can help with your care costs. Constance appeared behind him with a fake smile. It's for the best, Tom. Really. I looked at my son, this stranger wearing my blood.
You want me to leave my home?
It's not like that, Dad. You need professional help now. I stood up slowly and walked to my bedroom. I packed a single bag with clothes and important papers. When I came back, they looked confused. What are you doing? Derek asked. I pulled my house keys off my ring and handed them to him. You can keep the keys. Derek's face lit up like Christmas morning. Dad, I'm gonna stay at the lake cabin for a while. Take your time here settling in.
I walked out,
Got in the gray sedan, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Derek holding the keys like a trophy. I arrived at the lake cabin just as the sun set beautifully. I'd bought it quietly 6 months ago with money from an inheritance Derek didn't know existed. I'd spent weekends renovating it, turning it into a small paradise. 2 bedrooms, brand new appliances, a deck overlooking the water. Fully paid off. I unpacked and called the utility company. I need to transfer service from my main house to my cabin immediately. Certainly.
And the previous address?
Disconnect everything. I'm moving out permanently. I did the exact same thing with gas, water, and internet. Then I called the mortgage company.
I need to clarify something important.
The house at 428 Oak Street is in my name only, correct? Yes, sir. Only your name on the deed and mortgage. If someone tries to take out a loan against it or make changes, they'll need my signature? Correct. You're the sole legal owner. Thank you very much. I hung up and waited patiently. It took exactly 3 days. Derek called, panicking. Dad, the power's off. The water too. Everything. Oh, those are in my name. I transferred them to the cabin. You what? How are we supposed to live here? I guess you'll have to set up your own accounts. But the house is still mine, Derek. You can keep the keys, but you were just borrowing it. Silence. Then, you can't do this to us? I just did. Click. Vincent called me the next morning. Tom, you need to hear this. The Buick was repossessed yesterday. What happened? Derek tried to sell it again, listed it online using my name as the previous owner, but I'd already filed a fraud report with the police. When the new buyer tried to verify the title, everything unraveled. Where's the car now? Impound lot, waiting for proper ownership to be established. Since you're the legal owner and the sale was fraudulent, it'll be returned to you. My hands shook with emotion.
When?
Maybe a week. The police are building a solid case against Derek. An hour later, I got another call. This time from a detective. Mr. Morrison, we need to ask you about a vehicle title fraud case. I told him absolutely everything. Showed him the forged signature, the recordings, all the evidence. The detective whistled. This is airtight. We'll be pressing charges immediately. That afternoon, Derek's bank account was frozen pending investigation. Vincent called again. He's being sued. The second buyer is going after him for fraud and emotional distress. I sat on my deck, watching the lake, and felt something like peace. The dominoes were falling exactly as they should. The IRS letter arrived at Derek's house a week later. Celeste had tipped them off anonymously. Derek had never reported the $18,000 as income. He'd spent it on the truck, some furniture, and a vacation. Now they wanted their cut, plus penalties and interest. Derek called me, desperate. Dad, I'm getting audited. They say I owe taxes on money I didn't report. What money? The car money. But I didn't know I had to report it. You mean the money from selling stolen property? Long silence. It wasn't stolen. You're my dad. It was family property. Family doesn't forge signatures, Derek. I was just trying to help you declutter. By lying to buyers? By faking my death certificate? More silence. How did you? Vincent told me everything. I heard him breathing hard on the other end. Dad, please, I'll fix this. Just help me with the IRS. I can't afford a lawyer. Then I guess you'll learn about consequences. I hung up. Celeste high-fived me from across the room. That was ice cold, Uncle Tom. That was necessary. The next month was complete chaos for Derek. Mallory filed for separation, claiming she didn't know about the fraud. Constance moved out, embarrassed by the public scandal. The house sat empty except for Derek, who couldn't afford the utilities. He lost his job when HR discovered he was under criminal investigation for fraud. His truck was repossessed when he missed payments. The lawsuit from the second buyer was moving forward aggressively. Every single choice he'd made was collapsing spectacularly. Meanwhile, I sat at the lake cabin, tending to my small garden and reading books I'd been meaning to finish. Celeste visited on weekends. We grilled fish and talked about everything except Derek. Marcus called to check in.
You doing okay?
Better than I've been in years. Derek's lawyer reached out, wants to negotiate a settlement. Tell them absolutely no. You sure?
Completely.
Vincent stopped by with photos of the Buick, now clean and ready for release. You can pick it up next week.
I looked at the pictures and felt Annie's presence. Thank you. Tom, what you did.
That took incredible patience. Most people would have exploded. Explosions are messy.
I wanted precision.
Vincent laughed. Well, you got it. I wrote Derek a letter. Nothing long, just a few lines on plain paper. Derek, you called me sentimental and impractical. You told me to let go of the past. You were wrong about what I was holding on to. It wasn't the car. It was the belief that my son was a good man. You sold that too. You taught me to be practical. I returned the favor, Dad.
I mailed it.
3 days later, it went viral. The buyer who sued Derek had shared it on a local community Facebook group, explaining the whole story. Comments flooded in. Strangers called Derek every name I'd thought but never said. People shared their own stories of ungrateful children. Someone started a fundraiser to help me restore the Buick. I didn't need the money, but I appreciated the thought. The post was shared 10,000 times in a week. Derek's name became synonymous with greed. Mallory's family publicly disowned him. Constance gave an interview calling him a disappointment to the family. Former friends posted screenshots of messages where Derek had bragged about manipulating me. His reputation was destroyed, not by me, but by his own words coming back to haunt him. Derek showed up at the cabin on a Tuesday morning. He looked absolutely terrible, unshaven, wearing clothes I recognized from 2 years ago. Dad? I stood on the deck, not inviting him in. Derek? I need help, please. I don't have anywhere to go anymore.
What about the house?
I can't afford it. Can't get utilities turned on without your signature. I've been staying with friends, but nobody wants me around anymore. I sipped my coffee calmly. That sounds hard. Dad, I'm sorry. I messed up. I know that now. Can I stay here? Just for a little while until I get back on my feet? I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw the boy who used to help me in the garage, the teenager who'd cried at his mother's funeral, the man who'd slowly turned into a stranger. No. His face crumpled completely. Please, I'm begging you. I gave you the keys to my life, Derek. My trust, my love, my history. You sold them like they were garbage. Now I'm keeping mine. Tears ran down his face. I'll do anything. Then learn to stand on your own. He stood there for 5 minutes, crying, before finally walking away. I watched until he disappeared down the road. The Buick came home on a bright Saturday morning. Vincent drove it personally, with Calvin following in his truck. They pulled into my cabin driveway, and I saw her again. Burgundy paint, gleaming, chrome perfect. Annie's car, our car. I ran my hand over the hood and memories flooded back. Vincent handed me the keys. She's all yours. Calvin smiled warmly. I brought my tools. Want to give her a full check? We spent the afternoon going over every inch. The engine purred. The interior was immaculate. Everything worked perfectly. Derek didn't deserve this car, Calvin said. Neither did Vincent, through no fault of his own. But you earned it twice. That night, I sat in the driver's seat and talked to Annie. I told her about Derek, about the betrayal, about the justice. I cried for the first time since it all started. Not sad tears, relieved tears. I got her back, Annie, I whispered. I got you back. The stars reflected off the lake and I felt whole again. The car wasn't just metal, it was proof that some things are worth fighting for. I started volunteering at the local high school auto shop. The teacher, Mr. Brennan, had heard about my story and invited me to help. Kids gathered around the Buick like it was a spaceship. You built this? One kid asked. My wife and I built it together over 2 years. I taught them how to rebuild carburetors, replace brake lines, and respect the machines they worked on. Some of them had no fathers. Some had bad ones. They listened when I talked. One kid, Tyler, asked me about Derek. Do you hate him? I thought about it carefully. No, I'm disappointed, but hate takes energy I don't want to spend. Will you ever forgive him? Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or letting him back in. Tyler nodded. My dad's like yours. Take stuff, lies, then be better than him. That's the real revenge. At the end of the semester, we painted Annie's initials on the restored bumper. AM. The kids made it a ceremony, saying her name as we applied the letters. I stood back and watched them work. These young people, learning respect and care. This was legacy. This was what Derek would never understand. I drove the Buick down Oak Street one last time. The house stood empty, a foreclosure sign in the yard. Derek was gone, moved to another state to escape the shame. Mallory had taken him back, but only after he'd sold everything and started fresh somewhere nobody knew his name. Constance sent me a letter apologizing. I never responded. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. I pulled up to the stop sign and looked at the house where I'd raised my son, where Annie and I had built a life, where everything had gone wrong. Then I drove away. The Buick's engine hummed beneath me, strong and sure. I passed the high school, where kids waved from the parking lot. I passed the lake, where my cabin waited. I passed the graveyard where Annie rested. We did it, I said out loud. He thought he could take everything. He forgot who taught him how to work for things in the first place. The sun set orange and gold, painting the sky the same color as Annie's favorite scarf. I drove with the windows down, wind in my hair, free. Sometimes revenge isn't about taking something back. It's about proving they never had the power to take it from you in the first place. The Buick roared beneath me and I smiled. Finally, I was home.